you know, my wife and I are childless. We're just a couple.
Yep.
And you know that people being what they are, when they see us, and how many kids do you have? Why don't you have kids? When are you going to have kids? What's wrong with you? You don't have kids. And her answer to that is always, well, I don't need children. I have him.
Yeah.
Pointing at me.
Heard that myself. Yeah. Definitely.
And she's really kind of got a point. Hey, unclear thinkers! It's that time again. It's another Tuesday night where John and I are going to delve the backwaters of our minds and see what all kind of deep, cruddy thinking we can come up with. As mentioned, that guy's John Bates. Hey, John.
Hey there, Smoke. How you doing?
I'm all right. I'm Larry Smoke, as the man just said. And the topic we have on hand is being a grown-up. That's as we were talking before we hit the microphone.
So, are you a grown-up? There's the question right there.
Oh, and that question has a myriad of answers, don't you think?
Yep. So, straight out, answer it. Are you a grown-up?
I think I am.
Yep. I would think I am too.
But
I mean, we're in our 40-something, late in the 40s, and getting closer to 50s. But yeah, But so, here's the next question for you. When did you become a grown-up?
I feel I became an adult at age 40. I feel like that was the time, and around 40. I can't pinpoint a date, but I do feel like somewhere around age 40 was the time that I've reached a place in my life where I felt like this is who I am, and I'm okay with that.
Was there a thing that happened around that time? Was there something that happened in your life that changed?
Not that I can pinpoint. I guess it was probably meeting the woman who would become the current Mrs. Smoke.
The current and permanent Mrs. Smoke.
Well, the current, as far as I'm concerned, yeah, because I love you, honey. Maybe it was meeting the right person, someone who accepted me for who I am, that finally allowed me to accept me for who I am, and therefore, all of a sudden, I didn't have insecurities that I didn't even necessarily realize that I had.
Right. So yeah, that's really the question for tonight. I mean, when I grow up, we said that when we were kids. Kids say that now. When I grow up, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to be this. I'm going to be that. The question is, how do we know when we've grown up? A lot of times, personally, I think that there's a trigger, a thing that happens. In most cultures around the world, they have a ritualized rite of passage for boys or girls to mark the transition from manhood to womanhood. You are a boy one day, you have this rite of passage, now you're a man. You're a girl one day, you have this rite of passage, now you're a girl.
Like bar mitzvah?
Yes, the bar and the bat mitzvah. And when a boy is 13, he has his bar mitzvah, and suddenly he is accountable for himself under Jewish law. Now, that's not Israeli law. I'm pretty sure in Israel you still have to be like 18, 19, 20. I don't know what it is exactly. But at 13, he is accountable under Jewish law and is therefore considered a man. And for girls, it's age 12 when they have their bat mitzvah. They're accountable for all the tenets of Jewish law.
Apparently, traditional Jewish law doesn't take into account like voting and possessing firearms.
Yeah, I don't know about voting, but I think in Israel, all the kids have firearms too. So
I guess you'd almost have to there.
Yeah. So I don't know. I know that they all have to serve in the military at some point.
Well, and I'm showing my ignorance maybe, but I was under the impression that was getting on past 16, 17, that their mandatory military service came in. So.
Yeah, but they still might have guns. I don't know. But many cultures have this. There's a tribe in Brazil, in the Amazon. I don't want to pronounce the name of the tribe because I will butcher it. But
it'll be in the show notes, people. How about that?
Yeah.
Unclearthinking.com. It'll be there.
The young men, for their rite of passage, there are these ants called bullet ants, which are some of the noted for having some of the most painful stings in the world.
And I know that because it was in the Ant-Man movie.
That's right. Exactly.
Yes.
They talked about it there.
Yes. Geek culture to the rescue again.
What they do is they gather a bunch of these bullet ants and they sedate them. And while they're sedated, they sew them into the inside. They weave these giant gloves around them with the stingers facing in. And then the boys have to put their hands in the glove, and the ants wake up and they're pissed off. And they sting him in the hands for 10 minutes, and he's not allowed to cry out, and he's not allowed to scream, and he's not allowed to do anything. And when he's done, he gets a few months to heal, and then they do it again, and they do it several times.
Damn.
And that's when he becomes a man. He passes this thing, and he is now a man.
There is stuff less than that going on at Guantanamo that people are raising hell about. Jesus.
Yeah. The Inuit people in Baffin Island, they used to be just the boys, but now they're starting to take the girls too. They take them out to remote hunting camps for weeks at a time to test their hunting skills and let them acclimatize to the Arctic weather. You know, because Inuit people tend to live in houses, not igloos so much these days, but they take them out there and they teach them the way their ancestors used to. And when they come back from these trips, they're adults.
Yeah, not a bad idea.
Yeah, exactly. They're all over the place. I mean,
a lot of Southern boys do that with their kids, except it involves deer stands.
Yes, exactly. and that's that's a point I'm going to bring up in just a second. We all know about, well, maybe we don't all know, the Amish have Rumspringa, you know, where their kids get to go out and be not Amish and insane for a year when they turn 16. And then if they come back, they're Amish forever. And if they don't come back, then their families don't speak to them and they're dead to them forever.
Well, no middle ground there.
No. All cultures have these things. The Maasai in Africa, they undergo Maasai. Their entire currency is cattle. So warriors are big. Warriors have to protect the cattle. That's what they do.
Okay.
So when they're at a certain age, they go spend the night in the forest together with the other boys, and they come back at dawn. And there's a lot of singing and dancing, and they drink a mixture of alcohol, cow's blood, and milk.
Good.
Then they're ritually circumcised.
Good.
I'm not, and it's not a nice version of circumcision.
Damn.
And then they spend the next 10 years or so sequestered with those same boys in a camp with no women, where they're learning to be, they're considered warriors at that point. And then for the next 10 years, they're learning more about being a warrior. They're learning to fight. They're learning how to be responsible. They're learning how to care for the cattle. And at the end of that time, they become senior warriors, and they're actually allowed to marry. They can't take a wife unless they undergo these rituals. If you cry during the circumcision, if you yell or moan during the circumcision, their families are standing around basically saying things like, if you make a sound, we will disown you.
And people get their knickers in a wad over college hazing and stuff that goes on at the service academies. I mean, damn.
Yeah. Well, you know, American culture is a bit different.
Yeah.
But in America, we used to have the Sweet 16, and it still exists in some forms, but it's not as prominent as it used to be.
Would the upper crust society old practice of the debutante coming out, would that be?
Right. Yeah, exactly right. That's when a young woman would come out into society and be recognized in society, and that's basically when she started looking for a husband.
Well, I was going to say, basically, she's officially eligible now.
Yes, yes. Now you can court her and marry her, and that's the way it goes.
As long as your blood's blue enough.
Yeah, yes, exactly right. Or as long as your blood's green enough in some cases.
That's true.
The thing is that in our society today, I don't think we ever had a formal. You mentioned the deer hunting thing, and it used to be the practice. You go out on the deer stand, and in the South, you go hunt and you kill your first deer, and you get what's known as blooded. And I don't know if people know this, and some of you might find it disgusting, but what they would do is they would take the blood of the deer, and they would either pour it on your head or smear it all over your face. And that was your first kill. You were a hunter then. And that's a form of ritual too, but those rituals...
Was it Andrew McCarthy had to drink the blood in Red Dawn? Which one? I can't remember.
Yeah, I think so, yeah. I think that was him. But those rituals have kind of died out. We don't have them so much anymore. I mean, to the point where there are people writing books about how to recapture the rituals of becoming a man. And those drum circle things that we heard about 10 years ago, it was all about grown men trying to prove to themselves that they were men. Because we don't have that acknowledgement anymore. We don't have that definitive rite of passage.
Yeah. Well, adulthood is, anymore, a very subjective term. Being a, air quotes, grown-up is different things to different people. There is no, in our culture, there is no set in stone definition to that phrase.
Yep, which it's good in the sense that people can make their own definitions and they can enjoy life on their own terms. But it also leads to, you can have I used to work as a bouncer, man. I tell you, there were 40 and 50-year-old teenagers that I used to have to throw out of the bar. every weekend.
Yeah, I mean, that was a continuation of what I just said about it, different things, different people. We all know there are kids, high school kids, who show wisdom, who make smart decisions. I'm going to make good grades. I'm going to prepare myself for college. I'm going to go to college. I'm going to make a 4.0. I'm going to go on to grad school. I'll get my PhD. I'll be a doctor. I'll be an engineer. And they follow through, and they stay out of trouble, and they prepare themselves for a productive, responsible life. There are 45 and 50-year-olds who can't hold a job, who sponge off public assistance or relatives and bounce from thing to thing, just carefree and flitty and foolish, and so yeah, it's possible to be a very mature, grown-up, air quotes again, teenager, and it's possible to be a very childish, middle-aged person.
Yep, exactly. I think in times past, not that long ago, times past, young men would hang out with older men, especially in rural areas, but I think even in urban areas too. Young men would go hang out where the old guys were, and they would listen to the stories, and they would hear the talk, and they would kind of gradually absorb what it meant to be in whatever culture they were in at the time, whether it was inner city urban or farm rural, what it meant to be a man. And you sort of got your rite of passage when the older men started giving you the nod. They were giving you the quiet that'll do, pig kind of thing. Hey, you did all right, son. And now you're becoming a man, and you learned how to be a man from those old men.
You are when those of us who are say you are.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think that's the case around the world, even for whatever rituals they have, whether they're tying ants to your hands or circumcising you after making you drink blood, milk, and alcohol, or whatever the case may be. It's the older people in society recognizing you as an adult that makes you an adult. And I think we've lost that to some degree, and that's why we have no definite standard. Young men don't hang out with old men these days. They hang out with other young men. And all of their affirmations come from their peers, and their peers' affirmations come from them. And so they're really unsure inside, am I a grown-up or am I just pretending to be a grown-up? And I think that insecurity drags us down for quite a while sometimes.
Well, what do you think about, getting back to what I said at the beginning of the show, that speaking as someone who has never polluted the gene pool, so many folks, some outright say, and others give the impression that they believe that you're not truly a grown-up until you've had children. Is there any merit to that line of thought?
I know a lot of people who've had children who are not grown-ups.
Well, I do too.
Yeah.
But those people to whom you refer believe they're grown-ups.
Yes, they do. But I've once again, as a bouncer, I've had to toss a whole bunch of parents who would try to bring the kids into bars. Yeah, I think even in those people who will tell you that they're all grown up, I think that a lot of those people simply aren't self-reflective. I think that deep down in their hearts that they still aren't quite sure if they're grown up, if they're doing it right. I think that's why a lot of young men live by their egos, and they constantly act as though they have something to prove because they're constantly trying to prove something to themselves and get that acknowledgement from other people that, yep, you're a grown up. And they're using standards of you're tough, you're not to be messed with, or whatever, as standards of being a grown up, rather than you are responsible and capable and strong enough to function on your own, which is, I think, what the standards really should be. That's just me, though. But yeah, that.
Well, you asked me the question earlier. Let me turn it around. Do you believe you're a grown up?
I do.
When did you begin to believe this of yourself?
Probably roughly the same time as you did, early 40s. Now, early 40s is when my wife left me, and that was a very traumatic time in my life. And that's why I was asking you earlier, is I think sometimes these rites of passage, sometimes you have to go through a little trauma in order to figure out that you're strong enough to go through the trauma, in order to figure out that, yeah, maybe I'm strong enough to be an adult. I think in my case, and probably your case, It's that we recognized ourselves as adults, and it didn't really matter who else was seeing us as an adult.
Yep. Amen to that.
However, if in our early 20s or even middle or late 20s, we had other adults recognizing us as stable adults, if we'd had those old guys around to tell us that we were adults, we might have gotten to that point much earlier. So
I don't know about that. I can think of, as soon as you say that sentence, I can think of several instances in my late 20s, early 30s, where my elders of both genders would compliment me on a life decision, or comment that I had handled something well, and I would be grateful for the compliment, but I didn't really. Not that I didn't believe them. I didn't believe that it was necessarily a sign of maturity. It was I thought they were seeing it that way, but I didn't feel like that's what it was. With me, it was a completely internal thing. It didn't have anything to do with anybody telling me or acknowledging me. It had to be something I came to on my own. Gee, this show is taking a downer turn.
No, I don't think so. I think, well, I mean, and that sort of brings me back around to where we were talking. I think maybe there has to be that slightly traumatizing, almost ritualistic thing that happens. Now, even with the bar mitzvah and the bat mitzvah, it's not like they have a big party and the 13-year-old wanders in and gets a bunch of gifts. There's actually a test that goes along with it. You have to memorize lengthy passages of scripture. You have to sing traditional songs. You have to basically study and perform in front of everyone else in order to have your bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah. So it's a thing that you have to work for and prepare for, and then standing up in front of all of your relatives and all of your friends and singing this traditional song in Hebrew. That's a little bit of a trauma. That's a little bit of a challenge, and you meet that challenge and you come out the other side and you feel a little bit stronger for it.
What of the old saying that a man is not truly a man until his father dies? You think that has any merit to it?
I think it has less merit these days. I think that it can be quite true, and I think it was definitely true when families were tighter and closer, and there was a head of household, and when your father died, suddenly you were head of household, and I think it still holds true in some situations. But my dad's alive, and like I said, I feel I'm a grown-up. I am responsible for my choices, and I think that's part of it right there, is understanding that you are responsible and that there's no one else to put the blame on or to turn to or to say, well, I don't have to deal with this because if I don't, someone else will. That's the actions of a child. Yeah. That's what children do. Yeah. I can't do this. Someone else has to do it for me. When you're a grown-up, you are like, well, there's no one else to do it for me. I have to do this or it simply won't get done.
Well, and as you know, my father has passed, so I'm of the other side of the coin.
Right.
And I see the merit in that statement because, and of course, I was 37 years old when Dad passed, so it wasn't like that we were kids in the house. My mother was, in essence, retired, and my sister was an adult. I mean, it wasn't like we were a nuclear in a single domicile family. And it wasn't until 3 or 4 years after that I had this, I won't say epiphany, but sense of self-awareness that I mentioned earlier, that I feel like I'm a grown-up now. So I don't think it was necessarily tied to my dad's passing, but that probably had something to do with it, just knowing that, at least by Judeo-Christian standards, that I'm the quote-unquote man of the family now. I mean, if my mother or sister needs something, instead of going to Dad first, they'll come to me. And I mean, and again, they were both grown adults. It wasn't like they would be coming to me for food and shelter, but still, there was something to it. So I mean, I can see the merit in the statement, but again, I don't necessarily think it's an all-encompassing rule of thumb.
Yeah, I think there just has to be a trigger somewhere. I think, I agree with you, and something like that can certainly be that trigger. Can certainly be that defining moment, that moment of, step up or shut up kind of thing.
How much do you think that, how to phrase what I'm trying to say, how much do you think our longer lifespans have to do with how much longer it takes some of us, humanity in general, especially American society, to become more mature. When everybody's lifespan was 35 years, you had to be pretty serious by the time you were 17, 18 years old, because half your life's over, bud. Whereas now, we know we're going to live to 80, so if we horse around till we're 35 or 40, we still got time to get our act together.
I don't know. I mean, my grandfather lived until he was 88, I think. And he was several generations ago, and I'm pretty sure he knew he was confident in his being a grown-up early on. Now, that's another thing. My grandfather's generation, both of my grandparents, they were World War II vets, both of them. That's a thing that right there, that made
a lot of people grow up fast, yeah.
Yes, exactly. You're responsible. You have to do it. You have no choice. You discover your own strength right there.
Well, I was talking about like the frontier generation. I'm talking about like mid 19th century. I wasn't talking about 20th century.
Right.
Those folks, when you like I said, you get a cut on your leg from the plowshare and it gets infected and you die and you're 24. It's
right. Right.
Whereas now we're all pretty confident we got a little bit more time than that, so we can be foolish a little bit longer, at least in the back of our minds.
Well, I think even in the 17, 1800s, the life expectancy wasn't really 35 or anything like that. So, I'm sure that has a bearing somewhere along the way. I don't know how much it actually has, but I guess the real point that I want to make here is that I think we become a grown-up when we feel strong enough to handle life on our own, when we feel like we've got a handle on it and we can do this, and even if we can't do this, no one else is responsible for doing it for us.
It's a good answer. Yeah, I like that. So, and I agree, because now that you say that, I guess that does kind of apply to me. When I was 40, I think that was when I realized that if I have to, I can make it on my own. I don't particularly want to, but if I have to, I'll be okay.
Right.
And I think that's probably an oversimplification, but I guess that was as simple as I can make it in a sentence.
Hey, that's what we specialize here on Unclear Thinking. We
oversimplification.
That's right.
Another
Unclear
service we provide.
Oversimplify. Yeah, there you go. The new name of the podcast.
Sarcasm and oversimplification. Weekdays at 5.
Well, all right. So I wonder what our listeners think. We don't have readers, do we?
Well, if they read the show notes, which they should do, they should read the show notes at unclearthinking.com. With every episode, there will be references to any kind of articles or videos or websites we reference. John will provide me a few things about these incredibly interesting anthropologic examples of rites of passage he provided. These big words, as my sister would say.
And at least one of those is going to come from Art of Manliness. But
hey, if it's good material, it's good material.
That's right.
Unclearthinking@gmail.com, folks. If you have anything to say, we'd love to hear it. Comments about this show, ideas for future ones, things you'd like to hear us talk about. Social media, as always, gang. Facebook /UnclearThinking, Google+. You can find us on Twitter, as you know. I'm at LA Smoke. John is at
Cuhullen. That's Cuhullen.
I'm glad he can spell it. And on that note, I will go downstairs and let my wife feel superior in her maturity to me. So
that's right. Don't let her do that, man. You're a grown-up.
Yeah, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Till next time, folks.
Have a good one.